Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are gonna today, if you have it available, we're gonna grab our blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can grab a blanket or a towel or something that's gonna lift just a little bit. And that's probably all we're gonna need today. So maybe a blanket, pillow, and then blocks to begin our practice. So I'm gonna take my glasses off and we are gonna start as we always do, which is by relaxing. So we're finding a space. I'm going to remain seated, but I'm going to invite you. Usually it's reclining, resting on your side or your belly, or maybe legs up the wall. We're really trying to find a space where we can have the least amount of muscle tension possible. So the space of ease. And feel free if you're resting on your back and you're experiencing any little tight back, you can always put blocks or a blanket behind the knees if your legs are straight or something behind your head as well. So as you're thinking about how you want to settle in, doesn't have to look like a yoga pose. It's a space where we feel at ease. We might do a few of those settling breaths, and that's really just a deeper inhale and a longer exhale. We can think about that exhale settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. We might do a few breaths, we might do several breaths. We're really listening to the body. It feels like you want to do more. Please do more. Once you feel like those settling breaths are complete, we just invite the body to go back to its regular breath pattern. The body is breathing itself without effort. Take a little time here at the beginning of class, really to arrive, to ground, to center, and to practice a few of those skills of being in that present moment awareness. We might begin that by just noticing sensation. So sometimes sensation is already getting our attention. There are things arising that we're noticing. And sensation is really sometimes it could seem like tightness or a release in the body. It could be more of a temperature change. Maybe there's an area that feels cooler or warmer. And for many of us, the reason we're here, right, is that sometimes we're working with chronic stuff. And so it may also be discomfort, or for a few of us, even pain. We're trying to notice sensation that arises with curiosity without judgment. I often say, what would you ask your best friend about that sensation? We're usually harsher with ourselves than we would be with our best friend. Maybe we can think of befriending sensation. That might be a tall order. Noticing without judgment, noticing with curiosity. It's also possible that there is just not a lot that is in your awareness sensation wise today. And if that's the case, what you might do, if this interests you, is go through the body, just name spaces. For instance, I might name right palm. And as I name it, I notice, is there a sensation present? And noticing what you notice about that sensation. So I'm going to be quiet here for a few moments while you tune into sensation arising, or perhaps name a space in the body and notice what might be present. It's noticing of sensation throughout any part of our pose today really brings you back to the present moment. So if your mind is wandering, which it's meant to do and will do naturally, you might Invite yourself to bring your awareness back to sensation. We're going to move now into noticing breath. And today we're going to notice the path of the breath. So as you're inhaling, as you're exhaling, we're noticing what spaces fill with that inhale and maybe what spaces feel like they perhaps release, or at least maybe we call it deflating, deflate with the exhale. What is the path of your breath today? Where do you notice it? This too can be a nice anchor to bring us back if our mind has wandered throughout the poses, bringing it back to sensation of the path of breath. And it may change, especially as we change positions, if we're folding forward, resting on our bellies, those kinds of things create different sensations in the breath. If it feels right to you, we're going to stretch a little bit. If you're reclining, we're staying there. So we might as well preserve that energy. Staying put if you're reclining. If you're not reclining, we're going to come to the floor. This is where your blocks or your blanket can come in handy. There's a couple of versions of this we can do. So if the one I'm explaining isn't where you want to go, know that we'll have a few others to think about. We're going to go first into supported bridge. And this is where we're going to be releasing the front side of the pelvis. So if you have two blocks, I usually like to put them right next to each other. You could also do this one block, blanket or a pillow. We're going to lift the hips and we're sliding those blocks or your prop right underneath the backside of the pelvis. That is your sacrum. We're going to make some decisions here. Do we want to stretch the legs? If there's pinching in the back, I might recommend like slowly easing into this. We might send arms overhead. So we get this pretty big back bend. If shoulders are tricky, I would leave arms down by your side. If this pose is not for you for lots of reasons, you might just remain flat on your back, have your knees bent, but walk your feet wide and drop your knees towards each other. This is called constructive rest pose. Arm wise, if it doesn't restrict your breath too much, you might wrap your hands. Speaking of restricting breath, it's going to make me cough. You might wrap your arms around your heart center. Supported bridge or constructive rest pose. Deciding where you'd like the feet to go, straight legs, bent knees, or maybe you change it up as you're moving through this pose. We're going to be here 5 minutes. And perhaps arms overhead. I'm actually going to send mine into 90 degrees today. And because this is a recording, sometimes I'm not sure who's tuning in. I have a lot of longtime students. Feel free to tune me out. But I do like to share a little bit about what we're doing here. In this stillness, we are hopefully getting to fascia, connective tissue. That's tendons, ligaments, it's fascia surrounding muscle, fascia interwoven through our skin, interwoven through our organs. There's our organ of form. And it tends to get pretty darn tight, especially as we're aging. In these longer holds, we're inviting that fascia to become more pliable. Now, we don't want to stretch a tendon or a ligament. That means we pulled it. But more pliable means just like taffy. It might start out a little bit harder, but we get it to stretch or open up just a little further. And often our fascia is one of the sources of our chronic pain. So we try to find the pose. We then rest in stillness to invite that fascia to become more pliable. Now, reasons to come out of the pose, if it is so uncomfortable, it has led to pain. There's nothing in our yoga practice that should be painful. You might find if you're fairly new to the practice that 5 minutes is just too darn long. You might build up to that. I do recommend, if possible, trying to stay in the pose at least 2 minutes, but we're always listening to the body. And if the body is telling us that's not a good idea, we want to respect that. This pose is meant to release this front side of the sacrum and belly fascia, a really particularly tight area for many of us. And when we release this front area, we often get a lot of relief in our low back. You might draw awareness either to sensation or to breath, bringing that awareness back to the body, back to this present moment experiencing. There are longer periods of silence in our yin practice. And you'll notice as we get closer to the end of class, that silence gets extended. It's always tricky on a recording. You're not sure if you've lost me, if I've frozen. Just know that we'll have some time where we're spending that time in silence. Release the pose. And I just always recommend taking some time to wiggle around, to stretch. I'm going to place the soles of my feet on the floor. I'm going to remove my prop and counterbalance with knees into chest. That doesn't have to be the space that you go. Trusting your body's wisdom to let you know maybe you want legs straight, maybe you need to be seated in a forward fold. So, really tuning in, if possible, to just what feels right in this moment for the body. We'll start to release that little bit of a counterbalance. We're going to do a twist, but it is more of an upper body shoulder opener. And this is where I recommend, if you do have a blanket or a low pillow, you might place that underneath the head. We are going to roll over to your right side. For convenience sake, if you're really tracking, you're going to notice I'm on my left side, but you're going to roll to your right side. It's almost like you're curling up in bed. Once you're on that side, we're going to take the arm and open it up. So the left arm for you is going to open up, and if possible, it rests on the floor. That might not be possible for you. You might use a block or a blanket to go underneath that elbow or upper arm if this one feels a little bit tricky. So while this is a twist, we're really targeting this upper body, and think shoulder to shoulder, this upper chest area. We're kind of complementing, not kind of, we are complementing the opening of the belly, that low pelvis area, with an opening of the heart center and chest area, two spaces in the body just by virtue of walking around in the world and the activities and the work that we do that tend to be quite tight. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily just experiencing it in that area. As you're noticing sensation, and for me, I feel this in my low back and a little bit of my hip structure. And sometimes that sensation wanders around as that tight fascia starts to become more pliable. It'll move on to the next place that you might notice that might feel tight or restricted. We might also notice the expansion here. We're really expanding that rib cage, that breath muscle, the diaphragm at the bottom of the rib cage. An opportunity to undo some of our day's activities or habitual movement patterns or stillness patterns, giving us a little bit more freedom, not just in the front, but also this mid back between the shoulder blade area, maybe even the top ridge of the shoulder, depending on how tight that area is for you. We'd like the breath to be easy here, effortless breath. You might take a moment to notice the path of the breath. Where do you feel the inhale expand into? Where do you feel the exhale release from? You might bring awareness back to sensation. Maybe you're noticing where you're experiencing the pose in the body. Perhaps there's an area of the body that's talking to you. Noticing again with curiosity. As you get ready to release the pose, I'm going to ask you to bring that left arm back, stack those shoulders, curl back up in our imaginary bed here for a moment. Just a couple of breaths. We're going to be switching to the other side. So for you, you're going to be dropping your knees to the left. We're going to curl up on our left side. And I'm just going to stay remaining looking here at the ceiling, but you're curling up on your left side, opening that right arm up. And again, if you're a visual learner, I'm going to look a little different than you. And maybe you're supporting that arm if it feels like it's hovering and you want something underneath. Coming in now to this other side, knees to the left, right arm opening up. And as you start to settle into that stillness of the pose, You might take a moment just to notice how this side feels compared to the other. Maybe there are similarities, maybe there are differences that you can note. And we're just noting we all have a dominant side. Often the dominant side feels tighter. We might be working with injury, so there may be some effect happening with that. And honestly, I'll say after practicing this for many, many years, the body arrives very different every day. There may be no real reason why something might feel similar or different. You might draw attention either to sensation or the path of the breath, practicing drawing our awareness back to this present. Let me say that again, present moment experiencing. Again, as we're releasing, we're going to take that arm, bring it back around as if you're curling up on your side in bed. And if you're a visual learner, I'm going to remain on my back here. And then we'll open up, all of us coming to rest on our back. We have one more pose here to do on our back, but we do have a choice point here. I shouldn't say we have one more pose. We'll have more poses on our resting on the floor, but we do have a choice point here. If you choose, we can go into reclining butterfly. If it's comfortable, I'm going to recommend that because we're really targeting this front of the pelvis along with the inner thighs. But you may prefer to do a seated butterfly where soles of the feet are together, knees drop out. You're just seated in a forward fold. If you're reclining, you can always use your blocks and place them underneath your thighs, especially if you have a hip structure that doesn't allow for knees to go out that far. If you're in a seated forward fold, you might use your blocks or a blanket or a sturdy pillow to lean into to support the head. Releasing inner thigh, pelvic floor, front of the pelvis. I should also mention you're welcome to place the arms wherever they feel good to you. That could be overhead, out in a T position. I often rest my hands on my rib cage. And now we're taking sort of this idea of our bridge pose where we release the lower half of our abdomen and its connected tissue, our twist where we release the upper body. And we're bringing it into this final release of that front side of the pelvis. This might get us into some deeper connected tissue. It takes a while to get to some of this deeper connected tissue. The closer we get to the skeleton, the longer it takes. We might take a moment to notice if our body is holding on to tension. We might do a quick scan, especially if you're seated forward. Often it might be holding the head up. Is it possible to release the head either into blocks that are stacked to your hands? I notice for myself, even reclining, I can hold tension in my inner thighs till the cows come home. So I'm always checking in with these places, inviting them to release. Sometimes simply noticing it will help those muscles let go. Sometimes they're just going to stay tight. Just depends. The goal of trying to release tension is to let go of that muscle tension so we can get to that connective tissue. We might bring our awareness back to body sensation or the path of the breath. Where do we experience the inhale? Where do we experience the exhale? As you're feeling ready, we're going to start to release the pose. So, those of you in a forward fold, beginning to restack the spine. Those of us who are in reclining butterfly, taking your time, sometimes even using hands to help those knees come back up through center. We're going to get ready to open up hamstrings or to invite hamstrings to open. For some of us, a seated forward fold is just misery. And so, what I want to invite you to do, if it makes more sense before I come up to demonstrate the next one, if it makes more sense for you to draw your right knee into chest, you can hang on to shin, you can hang on to thigh. That's going to open up some hamstring. If you'd like to go into a seated hamstring forward fold, we're going to extend our right leg out, and our left foot is going to come somewhere along that um, inner space of the shin and the thigh. And because of my hip structure, you're going to see me open up just a little bit. You might be facing your toes. This too can be a place where we use our blocks in that forward fold. You can use hands to support as well, or we might have our knee into chest. So reminding yourself here, if structure of the hips is such that folding forward just creates a lot of tension, not very much fun, you might want to recline. And the other thing I didn't mention, if you want a little help in your forward fold, you can always come to have a seat on your blocks, your blanket. That's going to lift you up just a little bit. That allows you to fold forward with a little bit more comfort. So as you're settling in, just deciding what makes sense for your body in this moment. This is really releasing the connective tissue of your three hamstring muscles. For those of us in a forward fold, we might experience some of that happening behind the knee. Some of us might experience it in the calf as well. Those hammies, for lack of a like accurate, I'll say anatomy. This is Kelly anatomy. Think of your hamstrings as kind of getting tucked into the back of your knee and just a little bit beyond. If you're reclining, you're targeting really the origin of your hamstrings, which is the sits bones, that bony protrusion in your bun cheek. That often doesn't have a lot of sensation of what we might call stretch or tension or resistance, but do know that it is happening, that we're making that connective tissue and specifically the tendons of the hamstring more pliable. We might check in to see if we're holding on to tension. If we're in a forward fold, one of the classic places is to try to tighten the thigh or to flex the foot. So you might check in with those two spaces. If you're reclining, often we're feeling more tension in neck, shoulders, maybe chest, especially if that knee compression, or I should say the crease of your thigh compression, is a little bit tricky. A blanket underneath the head or a block underneath the head can help with some of that tension and release through that upper area of the chest, the neck, the shoulders. Creating more pliability in the hamstrings is going to invite some release in the backside of the pelvis and the low back. If you're feeling it behind the knees and a little bit into the calf, going to give us less tug on that area as well. And of course, if we're in a forward fold, we're continuing to release the connective tissue of the backside of the body, and specifically connective tissue of the back muscles, and maybe to the level of the connective tissue of the spine, those ligaments, tendons in the spine, tiny, tiny. Maybe we're noticing sensation. Maybe we're noticing the path of the breath. Begin to release, taking a little time to move. If you're reclining, you might stretch a leg out. For those of us who've been in a forward fold, it might feel good to lean back on hands. We are going to switch to the other side. And something to note, if you're new here, if you're watching the recording for the first time, our sides do not have to match. So sometimes, not sometimes, almost always, our sides don't match. Our hip structure is different. We have different tightness and connective tissue. So it's okay to switch it up. If you want to come and recline and draw the left knee in, you can. If you were reclining and you want to try that left leg straight out in a seated forward fold, you're welcome to as well. Again, if you're in that forward fold, before you go there, we're deciding where we would like to slide that right foot, somewhere along the shin, inner thigh. Do we want to support the head with blocks, hands? Maybe it doesn't need that support. If you're reclining, do you want some support behind the head? Coming into your forward fold or drawing knee into chest as you're ready. These forward folds, we're letting gravity do the work. Very different from our yoga class where we're really striving. If you're thinking about stretching that back side of the leg, often we're reaching for the foot, we're flexing the foot. And here, we're noticing, can we release the foot? It lands where it lands. And we release the front of the knee, or, sorry, the front of the thigh. I guess also the front of the knee. If you're reclining, can we bring a little more ease into that upper body, chest, shoulder area? In this yoga of stillness, you could find quite a lot of release. Again, might draw our awareness to physical sensation, to breath, returning to that present moment, experiencing, noticing with curiosity. To release that restacking of the spine or stretching of the leg. Give yourself some wiggles, some movement. We are just at 45 minutes here for class. We're going to be coming into final relaxation. And typically, what I do here when I'm recording is get you all settled in and then quietly log off. What I might recommend, if you have the time, usually these classes are 60 minutes, kind of nice when it is a recording that you get more of an opportunity just to be in final relaxation. Normally, we might do it in 5 minutes time. This will give us a little bit more time. So, the invitation is maybe to challenge yourself to stay just a little bit longer, to really let your energetic body, your physical body absorb all of the benefits of your 45-minute practice. Now, as we're coming into final relaxation, you can be in any space. Might be very traditional Shavasana where you're resting on your back. You might have something supporting behind the knees if you have straight legs. Shavasana is typically with hands down by your side and palms facing up. I usually give my shoulder blades a little squeeze and then release. But maybe you prefer to rest on your belly. You prefer to rest on your side. Maybe you like legs up the wall. If you have a couch or a chair nearby, you might put your calves on the couch while you're resting on the floor. There's really no particular place to be. What we're trying to do, just as we did at the beginning of class, is to find the space where it brings the most ease into the body in this moment. So I encourage you to make your little nest. Mhm. As you find yourself settling in, you might use that deeper inhale, that longer exhale we practiced at the beginning of class. We're just taking a nice deep breath. As you exhale, you imagine that exhale is settling into the weight of the body where you're connected to the floor. That last bit of letting go. Once those settling breaths feel complete, we invite the body to breathe itself. There is no effort to breath, no tracking of breath, no noticing of breath. We're just breathing. We invite longer pauses between thoughts. And sometimes that can lead to a quieting the chatter of the mind. We let go of all of the doing of our day, of our hours practice. We invite ourselves to just simply be, to be resting here in a sense of ease, maybe even a sense of well being, resting in this ease and well being for as long as you choose today.